Donald Trump has been elected president, defeating Vice President Kamala Harris.
He's going to be only the second Republican to win the popular vote this century.
He returns as a convicted felon, twice impeached, survivor of an assassination attempt, and most importantly of all, a political survivor.
I'm so up!
We're going to help our country heal. We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly.
Hello and welcome to the Nexus. The United States, and indeed the world, is moving into a new era, one with Donald Trump as president again. On today's program, we're looking at why he won and if the Democrats can learn anything from this thrashing at the polls. We'll hear from a very smart and witty panel of experts.
The Democrat Party thinks that we are all dumb.
A majority of Americans bought into Donald Trump's
This is the anger phase of your morning. My condolences to your party.
But first, more on Trump's victory and what some are calling the greatest political comeback of all time. For conservative Americans watching Biden and Harris governing the country over the past 4 years, it's been a dark time. But now, a new era beckons.
Look what happened. Is this crazy?
We just witnessed the greatest political comeback in the history of the United States of America.
This is karma, ladies and gentlemen. He deserves this.
Trump is back, and bigger than ever.
This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again.
His victory surpassing even that of 2016. 8 years ago, he beat Hillary Clinton in the Electoral College, but lagged behind in the popular vote. This time, he's won both, with millions of Americans voting for him over his Democrat rival, Kamala Harris. This means he can justifiably say the country backs him and his vision for America.
America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate.
Now, while millions of Americans celebrated their favorite candidate's victory, the legacy media that they're watching wept inwardly as the results came in.
Donald Trump has won the presidency for a second time.
For instance, Jake Tapper of CNN could not have looked more glum.
Harris overperforming 2020.
Holy smokes.
There you go.
Literally nothing?
Literally nothing.
Literally not one county?
And his supporting panel of Dana Bash and her ex-husband, John King, took on the same funereal tone.
He has said very clearly, multiple times, that he will go after and prosecute his enemies.
CNN, MSNBC, ABC, all the big networks have been hoping for a Kamala Harris win. There were a couple of exceptions. Conservative broadcaster Newsmax was amongst the first to declare for Trump. Fox News, too.
The Fox News decision desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
Very few predicted this landslide, a victory that was secured despite enormous obstacles. Trump's enemies did everything to stop him. Court cases, lawsuits, censorship. They even tried to kill him twice. And yet he prevailed. Why?
He took a bullet for us. He's a good American. He's all about America.
He's going to make everyone happy again. Even if they didn't want him as president, they're going to be wealthier, safer, healthier, everything.
Oh my God, let's make America great again.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
You can call me deplorable, call me garbage, call me whatever you want, but if the economy gets better, I don't care what you call me.
In surveys, people often said the economy was the biggest issue, especially inflation.
A loaf of bread costs 50% more today than it did before the pandemic. Ground beef is up almost 50%.
Trump promised to tackle inflation, getting it down by tapping into America's great oil reserves.
We have more liquid gold than any country in the world, more than Saudi Arabia. We will drill, baby, drill. We're going to drill, baby, drill.
Perhaps just as important as the economy, border security. On her watch, millions of illegal immigrants poured through the border unchallenged.
We've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
Trump used the migration issue again and again and again at his rallies.
Millions and millions of people flood into the country. A nation-destroying invasion on our southern border. On day one, I will seal the border, stop the invasion.
And famously during the debate.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats.
In addition to the issues, both sides tried to paint the other as crazy and dangerous.
Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
I'm not a Nazi. I'm the opposite of a Nazi.
These guys are creepy and yes, just weird as hell.
I think it's important to say what's actually going on.
I'm a knucklehead at times.
Kamala did her best to relate to normal people and tried to convince them she was just like them.
I grew up a middle-class kid. So I was raised as a middle-class kid. I come from the middle class. I know what I'm talking about.
But somehow they related more to the billionaire from New York.
Nobody's ever come up to me and said, it's really important to me that we allow men to play in women's sports. Nobody. Nobody.
Trump may be the billionaire, but Kamala Harris had more of them on her side. According to Forbes magazine, 83, compared to Trump with just 52. Of course, he had the biggest one of all. Kamala also had far more legacy news organizations, not just the TV networks, but also the newspapers, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the LA Times.
We should be emotional. We should be upset. We should be scared and outraged. We should.
Kamala also had far more celebrities, all the big ones, including Beyonce, Oprah, Taylor Swift, Robert De Niro, J-Lo, Cardi B, and the whole cast of Saturday Night Live.
It's nice to see you, Kamala. It is nice to see you, Kamala. And I'm just here to remind you, you got this. Because you can do something your opponent cannot do. You can open doors.
But Trump had a team of liberty-loving superheroes, never before assembled. Many were former Democrats who now found their old party too extreme.
If Trump doesn't win, this is the last election.
I want you to vote for Donald Trump.
The choice in this election is very clear.
While the big news networks favored Kamala Harris, they were countered by podcasters, individuals who are now more powerful in some ways than the networks. Men like Tucker Carlson, Logan Paul, and the biggest of them all, Joe Rogan.
All right, we're rolling. Good to see you, sir. Here we go.
These social media stars helped Trump to reach young people and to counter the mainstream media narrative, which was relentlessly negative towards him.
If she did this kind of an interview with you, I hope she does, because it would be a mess. She'd be laying on the floor comatose. You'd be saying, call in the medics.
With their help, Trump's campaign was a massive success. He won over more young people than before, more Latinos, and more of the African American population. And so he becomes the first president to win 2 terms non-consecutively since Grover Cleveland nearly 140 years ago.
This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have.
Let's get to the politics. And today we have 2 happy Republicans, Scottie Nell Hughes and Janelle King, and a rather depressed but ever-witty Democrat, David Shuster. Welcome to the program, everyone. Now, David, you'll notice that you're outnumbered 2-1, so I'll give you the honor of going first. Why didn't Kamala Harris beat Donald Trump?
Well, a couple of things. I think a majority of Americans bought into Donald Trump's I think we have a lot of low information people here who are not very well educated. They heard Donald Trump speaking in ambiguities. I think more educated Americans heard Donald Trump talking about fascism and wanting to emulate Hitler. So I think most Americans, they looked at the border. They saw that there was immigration problems, even though immigration is down compared to the end of the Trump administration. They bought into Donald Trump's claims about the economy, that inflation is skyrocketing when in fact inflation is down. And I think they also felt some overall concerns about the direction of the country. Adding all of that up together, it's usually a change election. When 7 out of 10 Americans say they don't like the direction of this country, which is what the polling found, it's very difficult if you've been part of that administration to win re-election. And Kamala Harris had a very tricky job of trying to somehow separate herself from Joe Biden. In the end, I think between turnout being lower than it was in 2020, and again, between a lot of misinformation out there, Kamala Harris was not able to replicate what Joe Biden did 4 years ago.
David, I dare say the mask of civility has dropped very quickly in this debate. perhaps because you're feeling rather depressed about her loss to Trump. I'd have to say this sort of cosmopolitan arrogance is probably what lost the Democrats the election. Come in, please, Scottie.
Oh, David just gave us the best examples because Democrats continue to insult the intelligence of Americans. And if it was just about Donald Trump, then please explain to me how there was such a red tsunami that we took over the Senate and we're going to be able to hold the House. So those kind of continued, the reason why the Republicans continue to dominate across the board this election season is because the last 4 years, Democrats like David insult the intelligence of Americans to think for themselves and not just take the rhetoric and narrative that continually is spoon-fed to them by the Democrats.
Comedian who called Puerto Ricans garbage. I was not
no,
the
you
one
had
who lied repeatedly to the American people.
You had a president
I'm not the one who got charged with 34 felonies and was convicted by a jury. Donald Trump is an adjudicated rapist, a convicted felon. He's misogynist, he's sexist, and even though a lot of Americans don't care, there's still a lot of Americans who do care, who care about Ukraine, which is now going to be carved up by Russia, who care about the economy, which is now going to be tanked by Donald Trump's tariffs. America's headed for some very dark days ahead because of Donald Trump.
Okay, time out, guys, time out. The fact is, you weren't just talking about Donald Trump, were you, David, in your first answer? You were talking about over 72 million voters. You called them ill-educated and misinformed, and I'm afraid that is the attitude that lost Kamala the election potentially.
That's not what cost Kamala the election. What cost Kamala the election is that a majority of Americans believe.
Hold on, Janelle. Let David answer.
They believed Donald Trump's lies. That's what cost the election.
Not because she was a bad candidate. Not because she was the most.
She was a great candidate.
She was a great candidate.
Did everything that she was asked for. She was a terrific candidate. Democrats had a good message going forward, but a lot of Americans are people who do not tune into politics. They don't do their own homework. When Donald Trump says we have the worst inflation we've ever had in our nation's history, a lot of Americans believe that nonsense, and there's no way to counter Donald Trump's lies. Clearly, Americans do not care about the truth.
Let's give Janelle a chance to come in. Janelle, there's no way to counter Donald Trump's lies. I thought that was what the entire mainstream media was for.
Oh my gosh, I'm like, please tag me in, because if I listen to any more of this, this is what we're talking about. You said that the voters were uneducated. You said that the voters were the ones believing these lies. This is as if Democrats don't tell lies. First of all, I said on this show just not too long ago before this election, and I stated that there's moments where Democrats want to pick and choose when they want to listen to President Trump, and then there are other moments when they don't. They continue to cherry pick his words. They continue to try to fearmonger. The fact of the matter is the Democrat Party thinks that we are all dumb. They think that they need to tell us what to do, tell us how to run things.
I don't think you and Scottie are dumb, but I do think there are a lot of dumb Americans who are out there.
I did not interrupt you. Please allow me to finish, which is another trait of Democrats. The moment you start calling them out, they start interrupting you and trying to cut you off so that you can't get your words out because they know that what you're saying is true. The fact of the matter is you opened up this segment before we had anything else to say, leading with insults, telling people we are uneducated. I am extremely educated. I follow politics. Unlike what you're saying, there are a lot of people who follow politics. And because we follow politics as Americans, we were able to decide for ourselves. And that is what Democrats are upset about. They don't want us to decide for ourselves. They want to tell us how to think. And we're telling you that the Republic has stood up and said, we're not going to take it anymore. We're not going to continue to be insulted. We're not going to be told that we need to vote a certain type of way because of these manufactured fears. Instead, we're going to do what's best for our families. And that's what happened.
David, the fact is, when you talk about Trump's voters, you're now having to look at the evolving demographics here. 42% of Hispanics voted for Donald Trump, and nearly 1 in 4 black men. So he is appealing to them. Are you calling them stupid and ill-informed as well?
No, I'm calling a lot of Latinos sexist, and that has come out in a lot of the polling. A majority of Latino men voted against Kamala Harris, and repeatedly they told pollsters and exit surveys it's because they don't believe a woman should be president of the United States, that a woman should be in the kitchen. That's what a number of radio hosts, Latino men, said. It's indebted, it's in the culture. There's a machismo that believes women should not be leaders. And that's one of the reasons that I think that Kamala Harris was hurt among Latino men and among Latinos in general. I think among African American men, there's also a challenge with the role of African American women in our society, that a lot of African American women don't like. African American men do not like the role that African American women have played in keeping families going and keeping the society intact.
Scottie, come in.
Let me please say something to that, because I am extremely insulted, particularly as an African American woman. First of all, the traditional values that you speak of are values that we have held as a culture for a very, very long time. We absolutely want to see our Black men lead our homes and lead our families. The fact of the matter is the Democrat Party would not allow that to happen. Anytime a Black man decides that he wants to do something for himself or lead his family or make decisions for his family, there are Black women in the Democrat Party that says, no, 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 don't listen to your husbands. Matter of fact, they pushed out commercials saying, lie to your husbands, tell them something different. How does that strengthen the family? We are tired of this rhetoric that continues to destroy the Black family, and we're not standing for it anymore. I stand beside our Black men. I stand with my Black man who voted for Trump proudly, and I know the reason why, and he leads my family. He leads my family every single day, and what we're not going to do is insult the Black community.
Are you going to stand by the Black men in the United States when Donald Trump tells the police they have immunity, and Donald Trump, as he said on the campaign, wants police to go and knock the out of people that police think are criminals and thugs? Not up to a jury to determine whether they're criminals and thugs, but just if police decide they see an African-American win and they don't like him and they want to beat the crap out of him. Are you going to defend the police? Are you going to defend, or are you going to defend Black men in that instance?
Let me give you an educated response, since you think I'm uneducated. Out of 60 million police interactions that take place in the state, in this country, less than 1% end in police brutality. The fact of the matter is more white Americans struggle through police brutality than Black Americans. So we're going to stop with that lie as well. Another lie is that all Black people are poor. We are not poor. We have businesses. We're educated. We have families. We are doing just fine. We're going to stop with that as well.
Scottie, just a final answer from you, because you didn't get much in this way of the debate here. A golden era Trump is promising. Are you excited about it, the next 4 years?
I'm absolutely, and don't apologize. Let me say this, David, I get it. You're in mourning. This is the anger phase of your mourning. My condolences to your party. And as long as you keep that attitude, you're going to continue to be at the graveside of politics. Because until you realize why the Democrats have lost the blue collar workers, have lost the diversity that you so championed for so many years, you're going to continue to have election night failures like you saw Tuesday night. So I am asking for your party, for the good of America, that you do a good post-mortem assessment of what you have done wrong as a party. And let's hope and try to work together, because let me tell you, Republicans nor Democrats have it right. And it's because of that the Trump movement has been successful.
Scottie, just a final answer, and I have to give this to David, I'm afraid, since he's outnumbered. David, will the Democrat Party learn its lesson not to be so woke in the future?
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, Democrats have gotten a majority of the votes in the presidential elections, in every presidential election for the last 20 years, until the one Tuesday night. So it's the Republicans who have been out in the hinterlands for a long time. I do agree that this whole issue about pronouns and wokeism and cancel culture, Democrats have to reevaluate. I've never supported any of that nonsense. I've never believed that pronouns and transgender rights and all that kind of thing. I think Democrats have taken that too far and they need to stand against it. However, again, Democrats, if you look at the issues Democrats stand for, economic opportunity, education opportunity, healthcare, a strong majority of Americans back Democratic policies on these issues. They don't like the Republican policies. The elections will swing back to that, I promise, starting in 2 years.
David Shuster, good luck. Janelle King and Scottie Nell Hughes, congratulations. Well, once back in the White House, Trump will be expected to make good on his pledges to cut the cost of living.
Rent's costing more, insurance costing more, milk's costing more, eggs are costing more, gas is costing more, everything's costing more.
Inflation fear is front and center for every American.
I just honestly don't know how people are making it.
Americans from the grocery store to the gas station are seeing their budgets tighten every single month.
I'm very scared. I'm very scared for what's going to happen.
Prices are just soaring.
This is it.
$85 at Kroger. Absolute robbery.
I just spent almost $12 on grapes.
It's clear the economy and concerns about costs remain the top issue for many voters.
It's $11.62 for grapes.
The volatility of it is really shocking to people.
I have the number somewhere.
New inflation data shows the lowest level of inflation since early 2021.
Inflation clearly retreating from the peak of just over 9% 2 years ago.
Even though the monthly and annual inflation figures have come down, inflation is still very much present in their minds.
That's because falling inflation does not mean falling prices. Grocery prices still up more than 20% over 4 years. Housing up 22%. Home insurance up nearly 15%. Auto insurance rates up 50% from 2020.
Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?
Life in 2024 is a financial emergency.
$300 electric bill? Like, seriously, guys? Like, this is stupid.
We'll cut your energy prices in half. Whoa!
Our groceries are an emergency. Our rent is an emergency. Everything is an emergency.
Something has to give here. We can't sustain this. This is ridiculous.
We will rapidly defeat inflation, and we will very simply make America affordable again. We're going to make it affordable.
Okay, let's bring in Helen Thomas now, a financial expert who used to advise the UK's former Chancellor, George Osborne. Hello, Helen. We're not going to hold that against you. Let's get straight into Donald Trump's victory. A lot of people would say that the economy was the biggest issue, and yet a lot of other people would say the economy was doing really, really well. So how do we square that?
I think inflation is a key part of this. Inflation is almost always politically very toxic because what it does is it makes winners and losers, and it really breaks apart. It sort of widens out the electorate. So even if you have a pay rise, you might look at the people next door and say, oh, well, why are they going on a better holiday than me or got a better car? It really, depending on what job you're in and how much of a pay rise you got, and obviously what you spend your money on, you will start to feel like a bit cheesed off, quite frankly. So it's been really a function of electorates across the world that despite the fact economies have come back in a recovery, the recovery's been uneven.
So Biden-Harris would have done well to have brought that down considerably and acknowledged that issue, perhaps more than some other cultural issues that they were going on about. And, for example, abortion, perhaps they should have acknowledged that inflation was as painful as it was for people, more.
Yeah, because here's the thing. My background is I studied politics and economics at university for my sins. And, economists will look at the inflation number and say, well, you know what, it was almost double digits and hey, it's coming back down now to 2 or 3%. But people remember the big jump up in prices. So sure, prices are no longer accelerating, but they're still higher than they were a few years ago. And I'm pretty sure everybody watching this is going to feel that sense. And it does leave you feeling poorer, whoever you are.
That's a good point. Well, Trump then, what is his economic plan?
Well, Trump's economic plan is actually quite reflationary, in fact, because here's the thing about inflation. A little bit of it can be pretty good as long as everybody is benefiting from it. And the way you get that is through growth. So the big thing here, you've heard it a lot in the UK, you'll see and hear much more of it in the US, is the plan to go for growth there, which is a combination of things like extending tax cuts, looking to deregulate and encourage entrepreneurship, and a big one for the Donald is tariffs, which, well, let's not get into a hideous economic discussion about that, but tariffs could well bring manufacturing and production back onshore to the US, which may well benefit a lot of people who feel they've been left behind.
But it has another effect, which is that it's likely to raise prices of those goods for Americans.
Well, it's one of these, it's a many round game. There's many stages to this, of course, in terms of tariffs. And you'll hear often that tariffs become a tit for tat situation where the price keeps ratcheting up and everyone is left off poorer. That doesn't necessarily have to be the case. It depends on if the game is played in that way, or if the great deal maker Donald Trump believes he can actually, for example, use the tariffs to negotiate a better deal where he would then release the tariffs or reduce them with countries he feels are playing along with his game. I think the key point here is it's the US doing it, of course. You have huge international muscle and that can, as a kind of deficit trading nation, actually potentially reap some benefits, at least initially, from playing the tariff game.
He's promised to allow oil producers in America to drill for more oil, produce more oil, perhaps even export it. Does that mean that that will push inflation down?
Yes, well, that's the fascinating part to all of this is, he's going for lower prices on energy, which is quite understandable in the context of the huge energy price rises everyone felt in the aftermath of the Ukraine war. And America has, really shifted its energy production. So it's become, net energy exporter after all these decades of having to buy it in. So there's some sanity in that approach. The key part actually about this Trump win is that he's got control of the Senate. He may well get the House of Representatives as well. The Republican clean sweep gives him a mandate, which is something that's been sorely lacking in many, many other countries. And that's where their governments have come very unstuck, including the UK.
Helen Thomas, thank you. And thank you at home and on your phones for watching. If you want to see this episode or any of our previous episodes, do go to our channel on YouTube. Just type in Nexus, TRT World. Till next week then, goodbye.